And we should be good. Hello. Welcome to Comic Beat Insider. I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor in chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the producer host of the weekly comic book, TV, film podcast, Comic News Insider at comicnewsinsider.com.
And I'm Avery Kaplan. I'm the features editor at The Beat.
And this week we are kicking off, a very special month here at Comic Beat Insider. We are kicking off Spider-Man month. Now, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and with Sam Raimi and the news, it seems like Spider-Man's on my trending topics every day, talking about, obviously Spider-Man No Way Home coming up. Sam Raimi's directing the new Doctor Strange movie, so all things Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy are very much in the news again, I feel. And also, it was like 19 years ago that Spider-Man debuted, and which is sort of kind of a long time ago.
2002, yeah.
2002, but not really a long time ago. And just revisiting this really shows us what has happened in 19 years in the comic book movie world.
But also took it 20 years to get to screen because they would for years. I remember reading articles back in the 90s about it, like how entangled it was in like just this mess of different companies and studios and directors. They were constantly like, I think Roger Corman first had the rights and it went to like another directors and somebody wanted a horror route, but Stan Lee didn't want that. And then James Cameron was attached for quite a while. So it went through a lot.
It did, and James Cameron probably came the closest to actually bringing it to
Yeah.
screen because he was just a huge nerd. He's riding high after the Terminator films, and this was the movie that he was going to do next. But it was all tied up in
Litigation
and litigation, but also and Jimmy always talks about being a reformed actor. Well, I'm a reformed Los Angeles resident, and I used to work for the Hollywood Reporter way back in the day. But Golas, these names that are tied up with the Spider-Man rights, trust me, back in the 80s and 90s, these were the titans of the industry, of the schlock industry. Golan and Globus and Carolco, Andy Vajna, like these moguls, they were, they made schlocky movies, and at this point superhero movies were considered kind of schlock. So Spider-Man was very high on the list, but they all went out of business. They all went sold out. At one time MGM controlled the rights to Spider-Man. And finally Sony got their hands on it, and we see, to use the professorial present tense, we see at the turn of the century, we see superhero movies finally getting ready to really bust out following the success of Blade in 1997. We must always give Blade credit for being the movie that kicked off the Renaissance. But then came the X-Men films, which they were certainly successful and worthy to be considered. I mean, they did very well, but the first one
was 2000, right?
Was 2000. It was also made by a known sexual abuser, and like Bryan Singer. I mean, he's hardly someone that we can really talk about with a light heart. But then with Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst,
who of course were not the first picks.
Were not the first picks, but
DiCaprio, Ledger, Prince Jr. went through it. And I think Raimi finally picked Maguire because he saw Cider House Rules.
Yeah,
I think Nick Cage, Malkovich, Jim Carrey all turned down the Osborn role, the Norman Osborn role.
Right.
And Defoe insisted on wearing that outfit. That took an hour, and there was like apparently 600 pieces on it. Kate Hudson turned down MJ.
I'm so glad all of this happened because I don't.
Sorry, was up for it. All these other people,
right? Because it was magic. I mean, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst are magic.
Yes, but I guess, do you remember? I think everybody's pick, and even Sam Raimi's pick at first, for some reason, something changed near the end, was Alicia Witt. I know all my friends want Alicia Witt because she looked perfect, redhead, beautiful, and she had just done a couple things, and she was like kind of a hot actress at the time, and we're like, yes, she'd be perfect. She looks the part. She's amazing. She's a really good actress. And then something like, because Dunst only got cast, I think, a month before shooting started. So there must have been some other.
It was all meant to happen, right?
Yeah,
Avery,
for sure.
So yeah, we'll go around and talk. But Avery, what was your first experience with Spider-Man 2002?
Oh, well, I just loved the movie. It really blew my mind. I think a big part of it is it wasn't embarrassed that it was a comic book movie. And you mentioned X-Men, and the part I really remember from X-Men is when they make the joke about the costumes, and they make the joke that, oh, like, would you prefer yellow spandex? And everybody's like, haha, obviously we want the leather. But I like from the instant you see Spider-Man on screen, like he looks like he's just right off the page. Even when he's in like the first incarnation, it's very colorful, it's very unashamed that it's based on a comic book. And I think I really responded to that really strongly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
You saw it in theaters, I'm assuming, when it first came out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I rewatched this last night, and as is my want, just minutes before we go live. And I'm not sure. I do think I'd seen it since it came out. I must have flipped through it on cable, but I don't. Not a lot. I mean, I haven't rewatched it over and over again. And so first off, nostalgia, because when this movie came out, I had just started doing the first version of The Beat, and it was very exciting. And also that was the first time that I'd really noticed a lot of the nerd movie coverage that we take for granted now. And I do think these films obviously were inventing that kind of on the fly. So I had a lot of external. Also, by the way, the day Spider-Man 2 debuted was also the first free comic book day. The reason why Free Comic Book Day was chosen for the first Friday in May was to tie in with the debut of Spider-Man. So it also had an effect on comic book history.
So cool.
But I think I did not. I just went and paid to see it. I didn't go to a screening because that was we're going to cover each film of the trilogy. Each episode film is just going to get its own episode, and then the final episode we're going to talk about our feelings about other Spider-Man, other times, other Spider-Man. But yeah, I went and saw it in the theater, and of course I loved Sam Raimi because I loved the Evil Dead trilogy, and just what Avery said, I was blown away. I think it still is perfect in its tone, just perfect.
Yeah, I definitely saw it in the theaters and was very excited to wait for it, and I remember how much it was just surpassing nerd culture, and it was for part of the mainstream. Was a girl I was dating at the time knew I was into all this stuff, and it's but she wasn't really, but she was like, oh, it's cool, we'll check some stuff out. But she was super excited to see this, because she's like, well, as a kid I never read some Spider-Man. I mean, she even ended up getting some Spider-Man comics. And yeah, we went to see it. We saw it a couple times in the theater, I'm pretty sure. And then over the years, I think I had the DVD and probably watched it a couple times. But then I watched it last week, when I thought we were going to do Friday. So I watched it a couple times last week. Yeah, it still holds up. It's still great. I really do. I've got a little notes about it, but yeah, it's super fun and I dig it. But yeah, it was. I think it was the first film to pass the $100 million mark in a single weekend.
I think part of it, there's a lot about this film. I do think it holds up beautifully, and CGI, we'll get to that. Obviously the bad CGI is what still people talk about, but also the fact that this movie came out May 2002. This is 6 months after 9/11. So
yeah, and they had to digitally take out the Twin Towers in some scenes.
There was originally a poster where Spider-Man had a web between the two towers and had the criminal. So that marked.
Well, that was a teaser trailer. Do you remember the teaser trailer?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
they alter a lot of stuff.
But it was also, a lot of the things in this movie really resonate with New York also. And I think that it just tapped into it tapped into the New York the focus on New York of that the early Marvel comics had, like that with the Kirby and the Lower East Side and Steve Ditko and his Midtown studio and Stan Lee, very much New Yorkers and the New
Queens
York
represent for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
And Spider-Man was in Queens.
Yeah, and so in back of me is a photo I took of the smallpox hospital on Roosevelt Island, which is the setting for the final showdown between Spider-Man and Green Goblin. At Roosevelt Island figures quite heavily in the second Spider-Man film. But Roosevelt Island is a real place. It's not much known
I
outside
knew
of
someone that lived
New
there at one
Yorkers.
point.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we all know
Never
someone.
been, but I've
Yeah. Oh, I
never
went
been.
over
Yeah. Yeah.
over my pandemic summer. It was a place to go.
You took the tram? The
Yeah, no,
little
no, I
air?
took the ferry. Took the
Okay.
ferry. But anyway, that's why I had this photo. But yeah, and a lot of the reaction to Spider-Man in the movie is very much informed by the civic pride that New Yorkers are feeling
Mhm.
post 2001. Like the scenes where they're cheering him on and everything is
Yeah.
very much an 9/11
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah. And then look, just as you're watching the film, you're like looking for the all now famous people in the cast, like
Oh,
Joe Manganiello, Tavia Spencer, Lucy Lawless has a cameo, Bill Nunn, Ted Raimi, of course, Elizabeth Banks, Bruce Campbell, Macho Man. There's so many
Yeah.
it's so many great little bits. You're like, oh my god, that person, that's that person. It's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah. But so yeah, I can't think of a movie that is a more perfect origin.
Hmm.
Also, by the way, it just like so they retold the origin for Amazing Spider-Man, right?
Right.
The Garfield one.
Oh, they do for everyone, it seems.
Well,
Yeah.
they didn't do it. They haven't done it for Tom Hammond yet. They're just like,
Tom
he got
Holland.
bit. Tom
Tom Holland.
Holland, yeah. Sorry, mixed up Nicholas Hammond and Tom Holland. That was a good one. So Nicholas Hammond, of course, starred in the Spider-Man TV show.
Yeah.
But I man, I just Sam Raimi, I mean, I love him, Jimmy,
Hmm.
because Evil Dead, and he
Started it
has a
all off.
couple,
Yeah.
it's pretty violent. There's some real violent things in this movie, and
Hmm.
gory. Apparently, like in the final showdown, Peter is gushing blood from his mouth, but they turned it into spit, so it would get a PG-13. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's got that background. Why not? So yeah.
Yeah, but so we start out with
Nerdy
Spider-Man,
Peter
Nerdy
Parker.
Pretty, but he's narrating it, and I do
Yeah.
think the narration is one of the secret
Yeah.
greatness of this. What do you think, Avery?
Yeah, I mean, I remembered it. Like as the opening credits were going, I said to Rebecca, like, "Oh, here he comes! Here comes the voice!" And then I did it again at the end. So there's obviously that's in
Nice.
there pretty
Nice little
deep.
tie-in.
Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have like
I
an,
actually I remembered so much of this movie, despite not I haven't seen it in at least a decade, and I remembered
Mhm.
so much of it.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah. Yeah, it was like it's the opening, especially the opening, where it's like, okay, first of all, that bus driver should be fired. What a
Yeah.
dick! It's like you're an employee of
yeah,
the school, and you're laughing along with the kids, making fun of this nerdy kid, and doing that thing that the ice cream that Eddie Murphy always joked about the ice cream guy would do. Anytime he came, he'd hear the kids coming and he'd speed away. It's like, come on now. And I was like, what a jerk!
Oh
That guy
no.
should definitely have been fired.
By the way, I did not remember or recognize Joe Manganiello
I didn't
as
know. It took me a
Flash.
second. Yeah, it took me a
Well,
minute.
I
Yeah,
saw him, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I was like, "Wow, that Flash is cute." I wonder whatever
yeah,
happened to him,
yeah,
And then I was like halfway through. So
yeah.
when I watch a movie I haven't seen, I watch it, and then probably like halfway through, I just take a little break and I look at IMDb to see
Sure,
what I'm
same.
missing. And I
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, that was Joe Manganiello."
yeah.
Like, well, he was hot, but he didn't look like,
Yeah, no, no, he did. I
he
think he
didn't
was
look like
20. I think he
Deathstroke.
was 24, 25 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do we
Um,
think of the middle-aged teenagers here?
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like Kirsten's the only one that's close. Like Toby and Joe and Franco, James, they were all like 24 to 26. Kirsten was 20,
Ah,
and she was obviously the youngest one of the cast. Actually, was closest to the age. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, they've been doing that for 100 years now. It's like,
yeah. I mean,
you just
we've
buy
seen
it.
it
You're like,
from.
whatever. Nowadays, I mean, they still like the Riverdale cast is 30. Now it's like, it's like, come on, it still happens nowadays. I get it, because when you're young, you grow up quick, and then you're like, oh, next season they're 4 feet taller and they look totally different. So I totally get you want to get them.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, yeah,
the Walt problem.
yeah. Oh, so many. Oh,
Yes,
so
yes.
many.
But yeah, so the movie opens, we meet Peter, we get this, iconic narration,
Meet
and
MJ, the neighbor,
the
who he's
neighbor,
been in love with since he was a little kid, and
and chase the bus. But and then I did think on this rewatch though, I was really keyed into MJ. And I do think Kirsten Dunst is just fabulous in
she's
this
great.
role. She's great.
Yeah,
I mean, both of them, but Tobey and Maguire, they have incredible chemistry. And
I
they
love I
both,
love her delight at Spider-Man every time, like just the way she's so delighted by him and fascinated and happy. Like, what, this guy's sweet. He said like just the way she plays it is so great. I
And
really,
and
really
but
like it.
also the way she defends Peter in
Hmm.
this scene
Yeah,
is in fact, I would have
yeah.
called that, he's been chasing the bus since Woodhaven
Nor yes,
Boulevard,
when they would him
which
Boulevard, I was like,
which is another
yeah,
total New
yeah,
York
mhm,
reference. Like Woodhaven
yeah,
Boulevard is the perfect street to have
yeah,
named in that. So
yeah.
um, and Sam Raimi grew up in Detroit, of course, in Michigan,
Hmm.
along with Rob Tabbert and Bruce Campbell. They were all kids growing up together. So, he's not a New Yorker, but he nailed it, man. He
Yeah,
nailed
he got it
just
down.
just got it down. And I want to praise, the bevy of screenwriters who worked on this, David Cope,
Oh,
who's
so many. Yeah.
he's, he wrote Jurassic Park. He wrote, half of the movies that we grew up on or love
Mhm.
to death. And so the producer, the late Laura Ziskin, brought in her husband Alvin Sargent, who's one of the all-time great screenwriters, to do a little polish on it. So, he's like 80 years old, but he came in and did a little writing, whatever. I mean, it was good. The script is really good, I
Was
feel.
Shaban on this one, or is he just on the next one?
Who?
Shaban, Michael Shaban.
He was on the next one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm, mm.
So,
Yeah,
but
we have this basically the origin scene, which is in the lab, and I have a what I remember my friend Carrie would call a pain point here. So they go to this lab and they're giving a big tour. It's a big school trip, right? They're all the kids are there. And of course, all they're being dicks to Peter, and he's there for the with his little camera. But we have this tour guide who's giving this great tour, this Asian woman who's got a lot of lines.
mm,
I'm like, who is this? And when I'm curious, I don't remember her. Look her up. I'm furious about this because like she's non-credited. You
oh,
had to do a deep dive into IMDb to find out it's Una Damon is her name. She didn't do mini films after that, probably because they didn't credit her, bastards.
mm,
But she's like listed below girl with coke in her hand, nurse. I'm like, are you?
mm,
I was so annoyed by this because I'm like, she's not an under five. She's even more than a day player. She has several lines,
mm.
like
Yeah.
prominent in that
And
scene.
and to be fair, in the current MCU, she would be her own character. So I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay, so two things that are interesting. I mean, this movie is super white by
Yeah.
by
That's why I'm so annoyed how she was
yes.
not credited.
And by the standards of the times.
Mhm.
I mean, of course, it's by the standards of the times, there's always like people of color in the background, but you're right,
Right.
they don't have speaking roles.
Yeah.
Robbie Robertson, the managing editor,
Yeah.
the
Bill Nunn
Perry.
had like 3 lines. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, he was actually the only character from. I mean, they didn't do any race swapping here. They
Yeah.
stuck with the originals. Very, very true to this
Yeah.
Lee and Ditko. And Robbie was the only person of color in the entire cast, and so he's the only
Well,
one here.
besides Una Damon, who actually,
Well, right, but I'm
yeah.
saying like if they were
Oh,
doing it
from the comics.
now,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the comics, and
Yeah.
and if they were doing it now, she would be,
Yeah.
Mystique or something.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
She get a
Because she
spin-off
did
in
have
like
like she
three.
had she had more lines than Bill Nunn did. She had more lines than Elizabeth Banks, I think.
Yeah.
Even it's like,
Well,
it's
good.
like what
Call it
happened?
out. Call it out.
I am
Jimmy made
calling it
it
out.
true.
It's
You
some
know.
bullshit.
Um, and so yeah, the whiteness of the film is a little bit just
Yeah.
jarring to today's
Yeah. Oh, don't you? I
audience.
will fix that at the end of this podcast.
What's
With
that? Oh yeah, okay, we will
we'll
rectify that.
recast this one. Yeah.
And then I said I
Ooh.
had a second one, and I don't remember what it was.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
that's okay.
interrupt,
It'll
but
come
yeah.
back to me.
Yeah. Well, here's what's so annoying about the scene. Like we established right away that Harry's obviously the super rich kid, son of Norman Osborn. James Franco plays it. And James Franco's super handsome, charming, but he also has that charming and smarmy at the same time, thing. And but it's like they're good. Him and Peter are good friends, but at the same time, it's like what a dick move. I know nobody owns who can hit on anybody or like
Oh,
somebody, but
total
like clearly
dick.
he's known that Peter's liked her forever. Steals his lines. Did you know that? I'm like, what a jerk. I was like, that's so uncool. That's so
Yeah.
uncool, dude.
Well, James Franco's been canceled since this came out also. And good riddance because he's always rubbed me the wrong
I
way.
feel like he was barely canceled and is
Yeah.
already back, but whatever. Yeah.
Probably. Um,
Yeah.
but let's talk about Willem Dafoe. Oof. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Now, I don't know whether this is just bad continuity. And I will say, as someone who's watched Sam Raimi movies with a microscope, the hairdressing and his content in his films often has bad continuity. But you notice that Willem Dafoe, when he's showing up at the school, it's probably just because they were shot in the same day, to be honest. But he's got the blow dried,
Yeah, yeah, it's
like mega villain hair, like
yeah,
business guy hair. And then when he's just in his mansion laughing, he's got like
yeah.
disheveled hair. And then in this one scene where Franco and Defoe have the same blow dried business
Yeah,
spoon
yeah.
hair.
Well, I think because in the comics their hair was so iconic the way it was drawn. Those weird lines. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
maybe that was some little reference. We're gonna make their hair weird, like that, like it was
Yeah.
in the
But
comics.
anyway, what do we think of Willem Dafoe?
Oh God, fantastic.
Oh, that
He's
scene where
great.
he's in the mirror and he's both sides of it.
Yeah.
Like it really feels like two distinct actors,
Yeah.
and it's amazing.
That dude's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Well,
I
that's
mean,
the thing. Yeah, like there's that scene where he's in the taking the potion or whatever like that. It's like, and he's just like, that scene made me laugh because like it's your lab. You drink a potion and then you throw the glass and break it on the floor. I'm like, why you want to make a mess for people? That's not cool. Come on now.
yeah. I mean,
He's great.
I just feel like Sam Raimi, he just nailed it. I mean, of all the movies, we've talked about a lot of great movies on here. We talked about some mediocre movies that I'm super fond of or Jimmy's super fond of. And we talked about some great movies. One of the very first movies we talked about was what I couldn't wait to talk about was Starship Troopers. And I'm just like, Verhoeven just gets it. He gets it in every single frame. And Raimi just gets every single thing about this film. Like
I got a couple little points that I didn't
yeah,
agree
well,
with.
all right, but I mean, it's like yes, and of course there are, but I'm saying, Uncle Ben's sweater vest, Aunt May in her floral dressing gown.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned clothes because in the last scene of the media of the lab thing where Parker gets bit, it is the first of many of the 20-year-old Kirsten Dunst playing a 16 to 17-year-old in revealing outfits. She has a really low cut top in that. Later on, we see, of course, the famous rain scene. I'm like, oh, really?
What
She's
happens
supposed to be
in the rain?
17. What's going on? It's like seriously, it's like, come on. So he clearly is
Yes.
like a little fascinated by her, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also just, yes, absolutely. That's Hollywood. You have a
Yeah, I
20-year-old,
know.
beautiful,
Yeah.
a beautiful 20-year-old actress
I think
with
she's playing 17 years old.
I
I was
know,
like,
yes, that's true,
I was like,
absolutely. But
yeah.
I mean, I love her character
She's
development.
great.
I
Oh,
mean, but
she's
also
awesome.
like the fact that she wants to be an actress, and then
Mhm.
when she's a waitress and she's lying to Peter.
That
Oh,
was so weird. What? Because every actor, I was a waiter for years and bartender when I was acting because between gigs you got to do something. So that was such a weird thing, weird line. I thought like where she was embarrassed. I'm like, well, you're not going to be instantly
Well,
acting,
it's because it was like a Hooters place, though. That's
No, it
what
was
I
a
thought.
diner. It was a diner,
no,
wasn't
it's
it?
just
It
a
was a
regular diner.
diner.
It's a real
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Oh,
Remember
I
that
thought it was
greasy,
supposed to be
sloppy
because she
chef
has
guy comes
it's
out?
like she has like the hidden
It's
outfit. I
I think
I
thought
it's the
it's
think
like
diner
she
outfit.
is.
I
Yeah, she's
think
just embarrassed. She's just
she
embarrassed.
was
Yeah,
just embarrassed by her
yeah,
badge and not the fact that she's, as Jimmy said, she's,
uh,
wearing a revealing. She's absolutely clad in quite revealing clothing throughout, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
something they did. But what do we think of um I mean, we're jumping way. Let's go back to the story a little bit, just
Yeah,
talk
okay.
about it
So
because it's
Peter
so
gets bit by a spider.
bit by a spider. Now, according to the IMDb trivia, which Jimmy and I
Mhm.
religiously read,
Yeah.
that was an actual spider that was painted.
Mhm.
I do not believe that. I think
Yeah,
that's
I'm like,
hooey.
that might be IMD.
Like they
Bleh.
spray paint it.
What they said in the trivia. I did not.
IMD bullshit, but
Yeah, I don't think I believe that.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think.
don't know
Yeah.
about that.
Now, Raimi wasn't. He tried not to rely on CGI, though. I will say that. And his instincts were correct because the CGI of the time was very dated and shows up pretty badly. And so every time it's a practical effect, it's much more convincing to our eyes. But I don't know the idea of printing a spider, but I mean, it's just so classic. Everything about this origin scene is he gets bit, we see the spider, and he does this very much into the Spider-Verse. Like I didn't realize that maybe Into the Spider-Verse was kind of influenced by this animation series that they use
Mhm.
here, to show a little bit of how he's feeling, like Peter's not feeling well. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes home and then doesn't feel well and, chagrining Aunt May and Uncle Ben by not eating dinner, which is
Yeah.
horrifying to them. Um, and then we have the great morning after scene
Yeah.
where he wakes up with his spider powers.
Yeah, which is great because it's like he just. But this is also like I get that you feel great from these new powers. You're like, oh my god, look at my body. Look, oh, I can see. Like, but like he's suddenly like, I'm gonna do this weird kick jump off down the stairs that I've never done before. That's fine. I totally can do that. It's fine. It's like, and then it's just like, okay, and then he does like some parkour down the stairs. I'm like, all right, dude, that's fine. Um, but yeah, it was just I felt like the development of those powers. Like I get we can't have this long montage, but it was just like, boy, he seemed to get a hang of them really quickly, and
Well,
like,
it was meant to be. Now, the most controversial thing about this movie when it opened was the organic web spinners.
yeah,
What do you, Avery? What do you think?
I get from a narrative perspective how it makes sense to just be like, just throw it in there as an organic power. But I also, it is so hand wavy, and like the little like spider web shaped like
yeah,
node on
yeah,
his wrist is such like a like just repeat to yourself it's only a show, just relax, like kind of like this is how it works this time, no more questions, let's move
yeah,
on.
Mm.
So I guess it works, but it is kind
yeah.
of like
Well, it was
It made
quite
sense to me at first, and then as I thought about it, like, I don't know.
it was quite the controversy at the time. And Raimi's
Well,
explanation was, we just wouldn't buy it if a kid could make web fluid. It's like we're buying everything else.
yeah,
I think he just, I just think he didn't want that extra
yeah.
mechanical complication, I guess.
Also, it came across a little like metaphor for sexuality.
Mm.
Coming into his sexuality, and like definitely that one scene was definitely like, well, this is a masturbatory metaphor. Absolutely, it's like
the
yes,
POV, like with
yeah,
the
yeah. I was like, that's a little bit, a
Well,
little
he
bit like.
does look at his pants and say he's had a
I
big
know.
change.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like this was. Come on. I was just kind of groaned. I was like, oh, okay. Well, rewatching. I probably back then I thought it was funny, but now I'm like rewatching. I kind of groaned. I was like, okay, Sam, I see what's going on.
But Tobey Maguire makes it all so cuddly and lovable and wonderful. I mean, he's just, again, he's so
Yeah,
good.
he's great. It's great.
He's able to like convey, I mean, multiple emotions at the same time. Fear of his, so
Mhm.
like you could see he has fear of Aunt May finding out, and yet
Yeah,
joy at his big change at the same time. He's just he's so well directed. Also, I will give,
yeah, for
like I
sure.
said, I give Raimi a lot of credit for all of this. Um, just for putting it all together so well. But yeah, so Peter has his powers. And now, meanwhile, Norman Osborn, as we said, is this is a little pain point for me, but it's necessary. It's like his company's being taken over because they're losing their contract with the military. There's a guy with scrambled
Mhm,
eggs, so he's a bad guy. Obviously, he's a member of the military.
mhm.
And then we see like why this is when you're true to the comics, you either buy it or you don't. And it's like, yeah, Sky Sled. That's exactly what he made as a military weapon, and there's I mean when he's standing on the thing. I mean,
yeah.
I had I don't have it
It's
now.
like it's like inspiration for the modern day hoverboard. It's
It is,
like
except the way he's standing
no.
is so like, I mean, I guess it's so you
Because have
get
you been on the hoverboard? Somebody trying to get the hang of it, you're kind of
uh,
like, yeah, it's kind
uh,
of weird, but yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, this is yeah, I agree. It was kind of like this, is just weird. But our government's done weirder stuff, that's for
Well,
sure.
that's true. That's true. And it does make, I mean, it makes Norman fairly sympathetic.
Yeah,
And we're also having this between um dynamic between Norman and Harry,
yeah,
father son, and then the dynamic between Ben and Peter, classic parallel, father son relationship. And we see Norman's trying to be a good father as best he can.
yeah. Even admits later I wasn't the best father, because I
Yeah.
neglected you a lot because he's
Well,
worried about his business. I
right,
get,
but he acknowledges that he should be
Yeah,
a father. Let's
for
put it
sure.
that way. He's
Yeah,
trying, but terrible at it. Whereas Ben is
yeah,
obviously a great father figure.
yeah.
Oh, and so then great little storytelling note I thought was Peter and Mary Jane share this beautiful
Mhm.
tender moment in their backyard. She's always
Yeah.
being fought with her father. She's always fighting with her father's picking on her and abusing her, being
Mhm.
very abusive. And they go out and have this lovely conversation. And then, but I will say, MJ is like, obviously she likes Peter, but then Flash shows up in his big car and she's like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, got a jet. Like like the minute somebody with
Yeah.
money comes along, she is out of there.
Yeah. Well, before that, we skipped in school. We established like after he gets his
Oh,
powers and he's like kind of like learning them. There's that great scene. I love that great bit where she almost slips and he catches her. He catches all the stuff. She's like, "Wow, great reflexes." I thought that was really cool. And then the organic webbing thing, of course. But then the fight he has with Flash, he does a triple backflip and almost breaks Flash's arm. And the kids are like, "Whoa, what? That's cool." Like nobody's like weirded out by. I mean, they kind of are, but not really extremely weirded out. But they're like, something's happening here. We should maybe like do something about this." I just feel like there should have been a bigger reaction. But yeah, it really did go from like that to like him practicing the sort of mini, from like, look at this. I can climb a wall. Wait a minute, now I can leap buildings. It's like it went so fast from
there's
that. Like
and
one
there's
to
that one close up of his hand that shows all the little spider prickles
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah.
So,
Again,
I
maybe
mean,
a
Raimi
metaphor
definitely.
of something else, but yeah.
But yeah, Raimi. Well, yeah, exactly. No, you're right. And I didn't
Really
really
is.
pick up on that at the time, but now that
Mhm.
you mention it, okay, sure.
Mhm.
Um, but it adds more subtext, I think.
Yeah. Sure.
Also, like the little Raimi body horror,
Yeah.
like he's getting his little licks in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then we don't see young Joe Manganiello again, so
Yeah.
too bad.
They do give because they do give him so many cheesy lines to MJ though. But again, Maguire pulls it off. Like when he sees her and meets her after the diner, and she admits it. He's like, "You're gonna light up Broadway." I'm like, "Oh, Peter, look at you, you little cheesy little poet, you."
Yeah.
I love it though. But
So
Maguire pulls it off so well though. So I think so. Yeah.
he's sincere. You
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He really believes it. You're like,
Believe it. Yeah.
"Oh, this little nerd. Look at that. He got a big heart."
And you don't. And again for me, it's like you have you experience the line, you recognize that it's cheesy,
Mhm.
and so you have the kind of cheap thrill of knowing how
Yeah.
cheesy it is, but then you come back around and
Yeah.
so it's that triple bind of that
Yeah.
really works for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so MJ, Peter and MJ share this wonderful moment. Then she jumps off
Flash
of
in his
Flash in his
brand new car.
comes and off she goes. And then Peter, what does he do?
He's like, "I need money to buy a nice
I need a
car.
car.
So let me," even though it's not been established at all, they can draw. Suddenly he's this amazing artist and like drawing all these costume designs to enter this wrestling contest to win what $3,000 I think it was.
Yeah. He sees in the paper because remember in those
Yeah.
days people looked
Yeah.
at the newspaper.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love that. Like, well, he's a pretty good artist.
Well, by the way, the art is by Phil Jimenez.
Phil Jimenez.
Yeah, that's what
We
I'm
should have
saying.
him on the show. Maybe we could get
Yeah.
Phil.
Do it.
Mm.
I just thought it was hilarious. So it's like we know he's a photographer, we know he's a nerd, we know he's smart, but there's no scene of him just doodling or drawing. You're like, oh, he's just an amazing artist too. Awesome. Why not? Why not?
When the spider bit him, he also got all the powers of a Marvel comics
There you go.
artist.
There you go. That makes
They
sense.
don't talk
Yeah.
about it a lot.
Yeah. And maybe apparently a really good seamstress too, because it's never seen how he makes a costume. We never see how that costume comes together. It's just all of a sudden it's on him. We're like, was there did I miss a scene? Is there a scene that he made? Nope. It did not happen.
I always loved that was like a subplot in Ultimate Spider-Man. So obviously Bendis was like watching Spider-Man and thinking like I see where I can grow here. Well, because that's like why Mary Jane and Peter keep talking after they break up in Ultimate Spider-Man is because she's helping him out with his costume. So it's like a reason for them to continue to like interact.
That's right.
Nice motivation.
Because the first costume he comes up with for the wrestling match he's going to go to win this money makes sense. It's just like 2-bit. Let me just throw some pajamas and this on and make a little costume out of it. And that makes more sense. And then, which is fine. But then we get to the real costume. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, it's just.
Oh, yeah. And also it has like glass.
Yeah. Like we could have had like maybe a little mini montage of him maybe going, learning, taking a swimming class.
Slowing it down. Jimmy's just slowing it down.
You're right. You're right. We don't need that. Yeah.
We know. We just. There was a montage that was
Yeah.
like, you know, that
Yeah.
music they always have to do. It's like
Yeah.
Danny
I'm
Yeah.
there.
Elfman.
That's
I'm
all I
doing it
That's all
for
I
you
wanted.
right now. Okay.
Great. Perfect. That's all I need. Great. Perfect.
Fill in
Awesome.
the blanks.
Okay.
Is that the
So
Would that have had?
string, the measuring,
yeah.
take the measurements?
Yes. Yes. Would this have added anything to the film?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Would have made it better for me. So he's at the wrestling match and he sees like who's in the ring? Bonesaw, but it's not Bonesaw. We know who that
Oh
is.
yeah.
Macho Man Savage. Yeah.
And of
Who's
course,
awesome. He's basically playing himself, but whatever, it's fine.
doesn't matter. And of
Doesn't matter.
course,
He's the
Bruce
best.
Campbell as the ring
Yeah.
announcer
And
was.
also Octavia Spencer
Oh, I
as the
didn't.
girl who takes like the sort of
Yeah.
like administration or
But
size
that
people
is a
up.
true before they were famous because
Yeah.
it was just a bit part. I mean, she
Yeah.
was like nobody at that point,
Yeah.
just an up and comer. And I was just like, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that entirely.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
but Bruce Campbell, I mean, so, you know, the other thing about Sam Raimi is that he has a lot of good luck charms that he has in his films. One of them is always putting Bruce Campbell in a cameo, and the other is the classic, that car, which is driven by
Oldsmobile 88.
right, which is driven by Uncle Ben in the film. So it's not going to be good luck for Uncle Ben. But you know, Spidey is able. You know, Bruce Campbell is it gives him his name. He says I'm the what is it, the human spider, and he's like,
Yeah.
too long, Spider-Man, the
Yeah.
amazing Spider-Man. He goes out, defeats Macho Man, and then we have the defining moment of the
Well, before Uncle Ben and him had a little talk in the car, and he was
about being a
he was
man.
he was a jerk to Uncle Ben. He like goes
Yeah.
off and like, man, you know, he's like the dude's raised you, he's been good to you, and like, come on now. So yeah, so then the thing happens. He gets in the big fight at the match. That's a great match. He gets like wasted. But then there's, you know, again, 2002 problematic where he's in the cage match with Macho Man, and he makes a homophobic joke. You know,
Yes,
it's
that's
just like,
true.
come
That's
on,
true.
really?
Although at least he said husband, so it was
Yeah,
like,
that's
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
supporting gay marriage.
I mean, I don't think that's the context, but sure, why not? On the line, but sure. You want to look at it that way? Why not?
Yes. I would say that is the one
Yeah. Like,
real problematic element that just
Yeah.
doesn't hold up to today's.
Yeah.
Although it's only 19 years ago. Jesus H.
yeah. Sad.
Oof, wow. And so he goes to get his $3,000 and the crooked promoter cheats him out of it.
Yeah.
He says, "You're
It's
supposed to."
$100.
It's $100. Well, he says, "But I said I would get it." That was if you went 3 minutes. You only went two. And he says, "But I need to buy a car. I know I need that money."
Yeah.
The promoter says, "How is that I
My
forget
problem.
when
How's that my
became
problem? Yeah, something like that.
forget
Yeah.
when that became my problem."
Yeah.
And then Peter walks out. And then just conveniently, a robber goes in and robs the promoter and runs out with the money. And the promoter says, "Stop that man." And Peter lets him get in the elevator. And the robber says, "Thank you."
Yeah. And then the jerk guy that didn't give him the money, and also either a cop or just a security guy, go over to him. Why didn't you stop him? And it was like, and then he does the whole thing. Well, yeah, because it wouldn't become my problem. But it's like, also, it's like the guy had a gun. You know, it's like, why didn't you? Hey, 17-year-old kid, why didn't you stop him? You know, I mean, you were awesome in the ring, but the guy had a gun. You would have been great with that. Like, really? It's like
17-year-old kid who we just extremely stiffed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also like just yelling out like, "Hey kid, stop that guy with a gun who could shoot us, kill us all." You know, and it's like, okay, idiots.
Yeah. But Peter learns that you must always take responsibility, because when he walks out, goes
Because
back
with
to
great power comes great responsibility.
because he goes back to the New York Public Library where Uncle Ben was waiting in the classic to pick him up. And now there's a big crowd gathered. And I guess Peter's spider sense is tingling at that point, because he's like, I got to get to this crowd. I go, "No, kid, stand back. There's been an injury." And it's like, that's my Uncle Ben.
Yeah. And poor, yeah. And last, and he's gone.
He's gone.
The Ben's gone. So he overhears like, we haven't caught the guy yet. He's on this blah blah blah. So of course his
On Fifth Avenue, which is totally impossible that there ever be
I
a
know.
chase down Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
So it's like suddenly this is where I turn disbelief, officially suspended. But Peter makes his leap of faith in Miles Morales.
Again, suddenly has this amazing, sort of just has the powers down. Okay, I'm gonna leap through this guy. Not perfect, but still he's got it down. And I guess he's on rage and adrenaline too. But yeah, and sadness. And corners the guy at some. Where are they? Where's this place that he this sort of
Oh, it's on
abandoned
the
on the
waterfront.
docks?
I was
Yeah, the
like,
waterfront. I'm like, where is that? I'm like,
it's another
that's a
non-existent place.
weird. I was like,
Okay,
that's a
sure.
weird turn. That
Well, you know where Fifth Avenue turns
yeah.
and goes to the
Okay.
docks, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I take that every day.
Ugh.
But it was like, yeah, they get there and they corners the guy. But then again, it's like this weird. Oh wow, he's already perfect. It's a great shot where we see him come upside down in the little spider pose on the web and back up. I'm like, when did he ever practice that? When did he ever learn that little move? He can barely swing around on the street, but now he's got this perfect little practice pose down.
Well, at the time, that scene again created a big stir among comics fans because it was taken so directly from the comics. You know, obviously Steve Ditko drawing,
Yeah.
and you know, I think we're kind of used to seeing things now. I mean, you know, Kevin Feige is not a comics, didn't grow up reading comics, but he really has the eye to be able to read them and see this will really translate to screen. So we've seen a lot of moments that are taken pretty directly from the comics, right, in the MCU. But that one really just, you know, I mean, I remember I saw it. I mean, I think I was in the theater and, you know, those of us in the clan started clapping. We were so excited by it.
Of course, when you see little moments, you're like, yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, he gets that robber. The robber topples to his death.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah,
all Disney villains. It's always the topple.
But But he definitely caused it. But was he actually dead? That's all I wasn't sure. I was like,
well,
oh, is he actually dead? I thought he was, but I was like,
well,
if he is,
he
definitely caused him
in Spider-Man 3. So we'll return to that story.
Yeah, he definitely caused that death. That's for sure. So,
yeah. So meanwhile, back at the ranch,
he's got a new costume, and he's in the montage of this Spider-Man saving everybody.
Yeah, but he says with great power comes great responsibility. So he decides he must stop street crime. And also, meanwhile, in desperation, Norman Osborn has, as you said, thrown the beaker on the ground and taken his own super serum.
Yeah.
And immediately become super powered and immediately gotten the urge to put on a complicated 800-piece plastic suit.
Yeah.
With a mask. Now, there was a lot of talk. I mean, the Green Goblin does look pretty awful, let's be honest, but I'm glad it was a costume and not CGI.
Yeah.
But
I agree. It was a terrible, but yeah,
but also, and Raimi struggled with this, which again we could see in the last scene, like you know, to show the emotions with the masks on. So with the Green Goblin, you can see Willem Dafoe's eyes.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit, and you could see his mouth a little bit.
That's why he insisted on wearing it, not having a stunt person. He's like, well, how are you gonna? You know, I need to act this scene. He'd act it out, and those stuff. So yeah, he insisted on being in it.
Yeah. So he's on a bit of a rampage. Oh, and then after Spider-Man is getting established, we haven't even talked about the greatest character in this film.
Lucy Lawless?
No.
No, well, there was that montage where Lucy Lawless makes it. She's in this random like punk wig or whatever. Guy with 8 hands sounds hot, you know, which is a great little scene. And then we can all relate to that annoying subway singer who's singing the Spider-Man song. We're like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
I've walked by him several times in the subway.
Well, again, before social media, this is how people got their news from actual subway singers. No, the greatest character in the film. Hello.
J. Jonah Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, he has a great entrance.
J.K. Simmons.
Perfectly.
Oh my God.
Perfect casting.
Yeah.
Oh, I just.
So perfect. He's going to play the role now for,
I know,
for the rest of his life.
Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also, again, like revisiting this, I mean, sometimes it's a chore for me to watch TV because I just don't like doing it, obviously. And, but the minute this started, I was like, I couldn't stop. It was like I was watching Justice League Snyder Cut again. I just couldn't turn it off.
Oh, no.
And then when J.K. Simmons returned, I said J.K. Rowling as you know, J. Jonah. I just as high as my level of joy was, it just went up another notch. Because, and then there's Ted Raimi as, you know, an obsequious office worker. But I mean, he's just so fucking perfect.
Yeah.
Barking his order, and he hates Spider-Man. And now the other great antagonist of the film is set up.
Well, I always viewed him as kind of like the midpoint between Uncle Ben and Norman, because he's got the capitalist angle like Norman, which obviously Uncle Ben failed miserably at, as we saw in the beginning. But as we see in the climactic, slight spoilers here for those of us who are very closely following along in our recap.
It's 19 years old.
Yeah. But he actually stands up to real evil. So you've got this figure who's sort of in the middle of, he's not the moral paragon of Uncle Ben, but he's also, he stands up for what's right when the chips are down. And I really thought that was interesting. And I've really recognized how he's sort of the third father figure for Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And but he's obsessed with Spider-Man, and the second money-making venture that Peter's seen in the paper, they say, we'll pay for photos. And so Peter, with his camera, gets this idea to take photos of himself in action. And the first scene with him at the Daily Bugle, it's just rich. He's like, stiffing him. Of course he's stiffing him for the photos, but then
wait, hold on.
Yeah, and as he walks out for bonus points, sees Elizabeth Banks as Betty Brant, just sitting there waiting for her moment to come.
Now, didn't they say, he says, I'm late for work, and he got fired by Dr. Connors?
Yes.
So the lizard?
They were going to have the lizard in this film, but they decided that quite rightly, just focus on the goblin.
Too much. Yeah,
because we see what happens when you have too many antagonists in Spider-Man 3. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but,
that's also what I learned from J. Jonah Jameson. I think that might be the next scene there with him, where he's like, slander is spoken in print, it's libel. I'm like, oh. I mean, you guys obviously knew that, but I was like, I don't think I knew that until 2002 when I saw that movie. I was like, oh, that's the difference. All right.
Yeah.
That's such a great moment too, that he's not mad about the fact that he did it.
He's a newspaper man, like you said, Avery. He's a newspaper man. He's Lou Grant, only even worse. But
gotta be technically correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, we forgot to mention, like in the scene where he does see MJ coming out of the diner working, and finds out that she's dating Harry, and Harry never told him, and they're roommates.
In this sick apartment. I mean, I guess Harry's dad was rich, so they have this kind of like split level loft with giant windows. Like I said, I remembered things for this movie. Like the minute they walked in, I had this subliminal memory of that fucking apartment, because I was just like, oh, I want a apartment.
But they're paying for it. They have weekly inspections they have to put up with.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So they're paying for it metaphorically, I guess.
Yeah, the daddy.
Come on, Oscorp, rich dad.
So I think because of the serum he put himself in, I guess Osborn was always a little kind of, he's a businessman jerk, but the serum obviously altered his mind a little too, maybe, and turned him evil, because that's why he becomes Goblin, and we get that first attack.
Oh yeah, so in Times Square, which is the World Unity Day with Macy Gray headlining.
Yeah.
That's a little dated.
Yeah, it was awesome, but I was like, oh, right on, cool.
Yeah, remember Macy Gray?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the classic coming out scene. The classic, superhero films always have some kind of gathering or a social, the ball, the fundraiser. Batman.
It was very Batman, like with all the the parade, all the balloons, and and that glider has like 1 billion weapons on it. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. There's like so many weapons on that glider. Rockets, bullets, like I think spitballs, everything. It has everything.
Oh, and he's got his little pumpkinos.
Pumpkin bombs.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. And but also like every time we see Harry Osborn struggle, or Norman Osborn struggling, we hear like he's in this beautiful, again, this Tudor City, looks like it's Tudor City, beautiful penthouse loft, actually filmed at Greystone, the mansion in Los Angeles, which is really a great place to go if you ever go to LA. It's a little known tourist attraction. Just this laughter through the house, ha ha ha. And then I love, there's a scene where Harry walks in and it's just like ha ha ha, and he goes, Dad?
Yeah.
Like when you walk into your house and hear my maniacal laughter, what do you do? But yeah, so and then Spider-Man quickly on the scene, and of course Kirsten Dunst was about to meet Norman, because there's this whole other subplot about Harry wanting to introduce MJ to his dad, even though she won't kiss him, by the way. So we don't know how far they've gotten. She's holding out a bit, and thank God she's got good taste. And but then little does she know the dad comes, and she just happens to be on a masonry balcony that's destroyed by the pumpkin bombs and about to plummet to her death.
Yeah.
But in comes Spider-Man and rescues her for the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got a real quick note that I just learned from right before this. I was Googling to learn more about the movie, and I found the action figure for Mary Jane that came with that corner of the balcony.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So it's such an iconic moment there that literally that chunk of balcony that falls off came with the action figure.
That's hilarious.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Well, so Spidey's not just saving her, he's trying to save people around him. There's that one scene where this kid, it's such a ridiculous scene. Kid's staring at the balloon, and things, and like 50 other people are surrounding, looking at the kid. Save him, Spider-Man. I'm like, you save him. You're closer. It's like you could, like, they were literally like feet away from a kid. Somebody could have ran in and grabbed him. I get the kid was like in a state of shock, like scared, not moving, fine. But it's like any other of those adults could have ran over and saved him. But luckily Spidey got there in time. So
yeah.
we had to establish he was a hero for all the people, not just MJ.
So now I think he figured, I forget when he figures out that, no, it wasn't until the horrible Thanksgiving. So then we have, I think, does the rain scene come before?
Not yet. Yeah.
Yes.
So during this, so he takes MJ away. He takes her really far away after saving her. I'm like, that's a little creepy. Why do you want her so far away? And I love this delighted again moment with Mary Jane, like the Spider-Man. So, but yeah, then it comes after that, where he's runs into her, where he's like, it took me 2 trains, a cab, and blah blah to get here to see you. And there's another cheesy whole little speech about like, you're gonna be everything. You're amazing, man. You're gonna be the best actress in the world. She's like, oh, it's
so supportive.
He's so supportive.
What a friend like that.
But then he leaves, and then it starts raining, and then she immediately gets like chased down this alley by these 4 thugs. And he comes back and saves her day. And we get the iconic, amazing scene. But although, of course, she's in like that tank top, soaked to the bone, and it's a very, suggested,
it's erotically charged.
It's very. That's what I'm saying.
Very erotically charged. I mean, there's huge chemistry between these two, and everything about that scene. Like, there's been a lot of talk of late about how the MCU is devoid of kissing or romance or sex. Forget about it. That's forbidden in China and I guess here. But romance, kissing, completely kibosh. And like, this scene is a reminder of just how powerful these kind of moments can be.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like, this movie, nobody thinks, oh my God, what a, sex-filled movie this is. But just watch it, it's typical. I mean, the things that you're talking about with Kirsten Dunst is just how actresses were treated at this time. It's nothing out of the ordinary. No. And which is, look, that's a very good change. But watching it today, it is like, oh my God, it's so spicy. Yeah. I don't know. Avery, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we're still talking about it. There's like that Doja Cat lyric, remember when I kissed you upside down, like in that movie? Like 20 years later, we're still talking about that kiss.
Yeah. What do you think? Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't think that they're like I mean, I like WandaVision, but I don't think we're gonna be talking about any of those kisses or anything in 20 years.
I mean, it's one of the all-time great movie kisses.
And she takes control of it too. She it's just great. She slowly pulls down the mask, grabs his face. So she's great.
Yeah. What do you think? What do we think though of the kind of de-emphasis of sex and romance in the MCU?
I mean, it's stupid. it's like why?
Well, and I think too, like the 17-year-old angle, like, is what's gross about it, not the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but here by then they're a few years older because they've graduated. I
mean, they're
that's true.
Yeah, they're over 18.
Yeah. But by this moment they are older. Yeah. But it's like, but even so, I see what you're saying. But just in Marvel U overall, like the only kiss I remember is my girl Natalie Dorman gets to kiss Captain America, the first Captain America.
You
but
only
it's not on the
remember that
lips
because you
'cause it's
love Natalie Dormer. Also,
Oh
that movie
God.
came out 15 years, I mean, a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah,
10
that's
years
true.
old.
True. It's true.
There is no, that a former good friend of the beat, Joshua Rivera, did a great article for, I believe, Polygon, that was ranking all the MCU kisses, and there's not too much to talk about, to be honest.
So he had like 3 rankings in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like the one that I always talk about is Thor Ragnarok, because obviously you have one of the hottest casts of all times.
Yeah.
And like Innuendo 9, but kind of veiled. Like you really gotta kind of, like the Hulk and his puka shells. All right,
Oh, and Valkyrie and the Gun is the part of the movie that I remember.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
true. There's plenty of innuendo, but actual like interaction between people is not. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think the fact that there is there's so much fewer romances or para romances in the MCU currently is because fans are shipping their own romances.
Yeah. Sure, I guess.
I
guess so.
I
think
mean,
they think they probably feel it slows the storyline down or whatever, or adding too much. I'm like, whatever, but
I guess I mean
it's
it's just interesting. I mean, obviously you couldn't have a Spider-Man film without romance, or could you? Because the current MJ is just, they're just friends.
Yeah. But he clearly likes her though. Yeah,
he likes her.
Yeah.
But
we'll see what happens in the next movie.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next movie. But yeah, and so far Zendaya as MJ, and she's a great MJ, by the way.
Amazing.
She's we love Zendaya here, a Comic Beat Insider.
We do.
But yeah, they're definitely downplaying it. But this trilogy without Peter and MJ relationship,
it
would be.
Yeah, it's big.
It's the heart.
It's like the heart.
Yeah. Superman and Lois. You gotta have Lois Lane. You gotta have that. Yeah,
it's the heart. Not only just in terms of romance, but in terms of their friendship, because it really does establish how much they care about each other as friends, and they really care about each other as people. Because we are coming to one of the most mocked scenes in this. So then we have the worst Thanksgiving
ever.
I
mean, I've been to some bad ones, but this is
not
the one I would have want to gone to.
I had a Thanksgiving where they started without us. So that was pretty bad, and we were only 10 minutes late. So
10 minutes late.
Well, so I don't even know to this day what happened there, but anyway. But this is the second worst Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because there's been a fight between Peter Parker and the Green Goblin, and Norman notices that he cut Peter. And so then they're in their horrible loft.
Oh yeah, they had another fight. They had a second fight where he kind of kidnaps him in a sense after that's right, knocks him out and says, "Here's an offer for you. Come work with me, kid. We're gonna do this, blah blah blah." But he had cut him. So what was weird is that so everyone's gathered but Peter. It's Harry.
They're not going to start without him.
No, Harry and MJ are there because they're like want to meet the dad. They're a couple. Aunt May's there. Norman shows up. Where's Peter? He should be. And then they hear a noise upstairs. Why do they all have to walk upstairs together? Like Aunt May's like, Peter, she could go up there. Like the rest can stay downstairs, but they all seem like, let's go get Peter. Like what? What?
The one time in a movie people don't split up to investigate a sound.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was like, why are you all going upstairs to his room? His private sanctuary room,
because it makes it more stressful.
And it's like, I mean, I know
tension, Jeopardy, ratchet up the Jeopardy. But he sees, Peter jumps onto his beautiful tin ceiling. And drop of blood drips, and it's just one drop of blood. But of course,
how the fuck does Osborn hear it drop?
Well, he's got Green Goblin hearing.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the DVD, I have the DVD for the first two movies, and I was looking at the special features for this one, and they have the music video for the Sum 41 song. And the entire concept of that music video is based around that scene. So you've got Peter on the roof of the concert, and you've got the whole concert's down happening on the floor. And the end of the video is the drop of blood falls down, and everyone in the concert realizes that Spider-Man must be on the ceiling. So they all look up. But then Spider-Man and the band is gone. It's like one of those the band is Spider-Man kind
Oh
of
my
music videos.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh
But
my
yeah, so that scene
God.
was very important to the Sum
Yeah.
41 music video.
Hell yeah, it should be.
Wow.
That's
Wow,
awesome.
wow. Well,
Yeah.
the minute so then when they all five of them sit down to this wonderful Thanksgiving,
Yeah, and May cooked her butt off. Come on
she's
now.
yeah, but then she foolishly says, "Peter, you're bleeding,"
Mm.
and Norman Osborn sees something. He realizes that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Like
And
just from a cut, like he could have cut anything. It's like he's just like, oh, you must have been. Yeah, that's so odd. It's like there's millions of people in the city. He could have cut himself,
that are
like he
bleeding.
said, that are bleeding. I'm bleeding right now, probably.
I
I
am
don't know.
too.
Half the time, I like you get those cuts where you're like, oh, how did that happen? You know, it's like where
These
that come from?
cat scratches, I might be
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Thanks. See, there you go.
We knew it. We
I
knew
used,
it.
I used to wake up. I had these mystery scratches. I guess I scratched myself, and then I'd be like, "Where did this come from?" You know?
Oh my cat!
Yeah.
I had a cat who I'd wake up with mystery scratches.
No, I don't have a cat. So I'm saying I would wake. So I must have done it to myself. So I was like, "The hell?" Or
Get a
my
get a
Or the Green
webcam.
Goblin.
Get a
My
webcam on
poltergeist, yeah.
Jimmy while he sleeps. Like, oh.
No, because then I'll see all the poltergeists and ghosts that are here, and I'll be
Ah.
freaked out.
So
that
so
stuff
now let's rock it into the third act. Okay, so so Norman Osborn kidnaps, Green Goblin kidnaps Aunt May.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
is-
but I gotta say real quick at Thanksgiving Day how fucking creepy he is when she smacks his hand when he puts his first of all, he puts his finger into the food.
yeah.
Taste it, you weirdo. It's like it's so she does say that he gives that evil look, and then just that great thing with the knives. And I'm like, and Aunt May's like, what the fuck is going on?
By the way, Rosemary Harris, who played Aunt May, is a British stage actress, like really distinguished, like
well known, for
very
sure.
well known, award winning, and she's she's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, so good.
And this scene is important here because also everyone storms out when he realizes he's Spider-Man. He storms out, then has a giant argument in the hall with Harry about that basically MJ's a floozy. You can get any girl you
Gold
want.
digger.
And the best thing is when Harry comes walk by and, oh, you heard that? He was yelling. I love they said yeah, we all heard it, idiot. It's like and then he defends his dad. Then they all end up leaving. It's just like, I guess Peter and Aunt May are gonna enjoy this lovely giant turkey. Great. So it's like,
well, they have lots of leftovers, and he did get the cranberry sauce. So
love me a good turkey sandwiches for days.
So Norman the Green Goblin puts his final plan into action.
Well, realize it because he has that great mirror scene that Avery was talking about earlier, where he's like, "How do I stop him?" Well, Peter, you gotta go after the love, his heart, like that. I love that stuff. So that's why he goes. It's a great scene where he just like
it's so good.
Busts into Aunt May. She's sleeping and she starts praying. And he's like, deliver us. He's like, finish it. It's so great.
Yes,
I love that.
And then so he's able to kidnap Aunt May, but to the point where Peter knows that that's a message that Peter knows that Green Goblin knows that he's and then poor Aunt May's his blue eyes, the mask,
the green eyes, green.
I'll never forget. It's like, wow, she's really shook by Green Goblin.
I would be too. Some dude in a costume and a glider.
The glider. There is one. I have some thoughts about the glider, but anyway, it's so now we're setting up. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few little moments here, but we basically get to the setup. He calls MJ to see how. Oh no, she comes to visit.
She comes to visit first,
and then
they're holding hands.
They're holding hands, but she wonders if she finds that Peter says, "Oh yeah, I know Spider-Man. I know him a little bit." I'm like, "Oh, do you ever talk about me?" And then Peter goes into this soliloquy.
Long, little cheesy.
Very long, cheesy soliloquy, which no movie would ever allow now. And it was a little bit controversial. But again, to me, it's just this quirkiness of it. Is it crazy? Yes. Is it wonderful? Yes, I think so. When I told Spider-Man that when I look at MJ's eyes, I see the possibilities of what I can be. I feel both excited and terrified. And that goes on for about 5-10 minutes more.
Mm-hmm. But and she's so lovely.
I don't know. What did we think? What did we think of the soliloquy?
Yeah. It was cheesy, but again, Maguire can pull those things off, so.
But it's in character.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
cheesy,
for
but
sure. Yeah.
it's also just, I don't know, it kind of balances out the other, like the cheesy comic booky aspects of like, like it's all heightened. It's like the actions heightened, the emotions are heightened. It's all.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, for
just
sure.
it ratchets it up more. You're right. It just makes the whole emotions of it stronger because then
Yeah.
we go into the final scene of the final action, set piece where Peter realizes that Green Goblin has kidnapped Mary Jane. And where is he taking her? He's taking her to Roosevelt Island like you do. And onto the tram. So this is interesting because it's their version of the classic Death of Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of been in every Spider-Man movie, but they only pulled the trigger in Amazing Spider-Man 2, More Death, More Jamie Foxx, whatever it was called. Probably the worst of the Spider-Man films, I'd have to say. But yeah, they actually kill off is it Gwen
I
Stacy
can't remember.
or Mary Jane? I forget
No,
who
it's
they
Gwen.
are.
It's Gwen.
It is
They
Gwen.
they
Yeah.
did Gwen in Amazing.
Yeah. They did Gwen. So they
What-
kill her off.
What kind of school trip happens at night and goes to Roosevelt Island?
Well, they
What
were
are you
going to the
talking about?
smallpox hospital.
At like 8
Yeah,
p.m.
of course.
at night.
When do you go to a smallpox hospital, Jimmy?
Probably 8 p.m. with a bunch of kids. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
It's required. You're right.
Yeah.
It's required to get on the Roosevelt tram. You have to have a group of students, young kids, to visit, or else you can't come.
Yeah.
Like,
and
wow.
and so Peter is faced with the classic dilemma: do I save Mary Jane or do I save this Roosevelt Island tram full of kids? He saves both because he's
Of course.
Spider-Man. And this is where like the great seed. This seed was added post 9/11, but they see the Green Goblin and the citizens are throwing rocks at him, throwing garbage at him, which is like, yeah, take that, we like Spider-Man.
Well, that's what's great because it is. I'm glad you said it because it's like at first I go, oh, that would never happen because the New Yorkers just don't care. And they would just, well, whatever. Look at that happening there. They wouldn't cheer him on. They wouldn't fight for him. But because it was post 9/11 and there was that sense of patriotism, I was like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense now. Yeah, because
you're
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're
nowadays
right.
people would be like, whatever. There's a fight going on.
I mean, I think the Vox Populi scenes in here are it would just be Twitter now.
Especially in 2,
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
subway scene, for sure.
Oh,
Camels.
yeah, right. So, so Peter and Green Goblin have a fight in this. What's behind me? It is based on this famous James Renwick, one of the great architects of New York history. He did St. Patrick's Cathedral, Grace Cathedral. This is one of his early buildings. It is in ruin and disrepair now, but they built this smallpox hospital on Roosevelt Island because if people were sick, they put them in a little island. That's what you do with sick people.
Sure.
And so you can't go inside, but it is quite beautiful. You can still see how beautiful a building it is. And but boy, Peter and Norman pretty much wreck it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like if you could have gone in before or after they're done with their fight, you would go in. But I love the fact that it is a real place. And
Yeah, I do gotta say, going back to him saving them both, that sure is a brave tugboat operator. It's like going into this battle, like, we got you, like announcing it, so Green Goblin could have easily attacked him too. He's like, we're gonna come onto you, don't worry, we got you. I'm
yeah,
like, all
but
right.
hey, Jimmy, remember, what's his face? The guy who landed the plane.
Yeah, it's true, Sully.
River.
Yeah,
Sully.
so, yeah.
Sully, yeah.
Fair enough.
There was all these
Absolutely.
tugboats. They were just they went right there and they got those
There you
people
go.
off that boat. So
Sure.
I New York's look. I'm a proud New Yorker. Our first
Same.
responders. I
Absolutely.
still give them a pass. I think we have pretty
Absolutely.
good first responders here. So
Absolutely. There's a great, I mean, it's Raimi, so many great shots, but in the big fight, that scene where the pumpkin bomb explosion that goes a little slow-mo and rips off half his mask. That's such a beautiful shot.
beautiful.
Such a great shot. I love
And
that.
so the CGI in the film is greatly criticized because they did do Spider-Man doing his flips and his twirls and all that as CGI, as all subsequent Spider-Man movies do, because you just can't film a human. There's a couple of shots of him tumbling and jumping that I think were real people doing stunts.
Yeah.
But like I said, Raimi used as little CGI as possible, and I mean, everybody criticizes how bad it looks, but I think you're right, Jimmy. I mean, I think the storyboarding and just the
Mhm.
impact of this fight scene
Yeah.
is great. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think it's really good.
it couldn't be staged or shot any
Mm.
better.
Yeah, I really liked the way it was done. Like the whole ending with the spider sense thing was great. I just love like where it's like where he gets a glider in the gut. It's just like he's just like, oh,
But
I
also,
love that
Yeah.
scene.
by the
So
way, the
memorable.
Yeah.
yeah, but also the having his mask blown off
Mhm,
solved Raimi's earlier problem,
mhm.
which was getting to see Peter Parker's emotions through the mask.
Yeah.
So both of them are unmasked in the final battle. I mean, for
Mhm.
that reason. So I mean, he
Yeah.
didn't, he didn't lose sight of of the
Mhm.
what was important. You know, he never. I think again, that's what I admire about this movie so much. He never ever loses sight of the
Yeah.
humans. You know,
Yeah.
it's not. You know, it's as much as we love Civil War. I mean, we talk about or not our Civil War and Winter Soldier. We talk
Mhm.
about this on the Beat Slack all the time, right? Like. Like we love Winter Soldier, the first 2/3, and then it just becomes this big CGI explosion of the Shield helicarrier just bumping into some buildings. With this Spider-Man, first off, it's so personal. It's no world threat.
Mhm.
It's just you know,
Yeah.
a very personal fight. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Which is
so I,
great.
I
And then of course Osborn, of course, after that his death, it's like, they have the whole big the funeral, and of course Harry's gonna carry on the dickish Osborn tradition of being jerks.
oh yeah,
It's like
oh yeah.
I'm gonna get him. Yeah.
And then
It's
at
like
the
all right.
funeral scene, the other thing is
Oh.
like Sam Raimi always wears a suit and tie on the
Mhm.
set. And,
Yeah.
every time we see Peter, he's wearing this suit and tie. Everybody's
Mhm.
got a great raincoat
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
That is not by accident. And everybody's got a great trench coat. But
Okay.
then we have this final narration.
But you have this confession of love by MJ first,
On the
Mhm.
which
kiss.
she loved, which
Yeah.
is great. And it's like, oh, come on. He's loved her his whole life, and he's
No,
gonna walk away from it. Come on. I don't know about that. But then
yeah,
it then leads to the narration of why, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
maybe, maybe.
it is my, what is it? My joy and my
Mhm.
curse.
Well,
Yep.
Goblin messed him up. Took
Yeah, it's
took
true.
MJ, took May, and
True. Fair
yeah,
enough.
I mean, it was a
It's
very
true.
calculated, like the people closest to you, I'm coming for.
Yeah, it's true.
No,
Fair
that's
enough.
true. I think this story is very much we talked about when we did Mystery Men about on here, like just how bad the script was and that, they went back and forth and they're dying and they're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So many needless scenes that should have been streamlined. This
Mhm.
film is super tight.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's super dramatically tight. Every scene has a reason.
it didn't feel like over 2 hours, and it's
No,
like
but I
it's
mean,
Mhm.
it
very
just
good.
like everything
Yeah.
advances character or advances the plot or reveals something to
Mhm.
us. And it's good. You know what? This is a good
It's
movie.
really great. I really loved revisiting it. I really had a
Yeah.
good
And
time rewatching it.
I also, by the way, I mean, you can rent this. I don't know. Well, Avery's obviously got everything on DVD because
Mhm.
she's like super organized. But
Yeah.
I was gonna rent it, and then I saw that a month of Stars is $9. So
Mhm.
I can rewatch everything. So I got the 1 month, so I'm gonna watch the whole
Excellent.
Spider-Man and just, immerse myself in Spider-Man
Nice.
because it's Spider-Man month here.
Yeah, it is. Spidey
And
month. Got my
I'm
yeah,
so
pumpkin.
excited for two. I'm so
I
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
know.
for
me
two.
too. Me too.
Next
2 weeks.
week, viewers and listeners, what is generally considered to be one of,
Mhm.
if not the
Yeah,
greatest superhero movie of all, Spider-Man 2. I haven't watched it since it
I
came
haven't
out.
either.
And as I walked out of the theater on that day in May 2004, I was walking on air. Will I feel
Yeah,
the
it's great.
same today?
We'll
We'll find
see.
out. We shall find out.
I've
Because
had this forever. I forgot I had this. I'm like, my
Ah,
little spider.
nice.
along came a
Forever.
spider.
Yep, there you
Yeah.
go.
So we're also hoping to have some special guest stars on here for the
Yes,
next couple of
excellent.
episodes. So
Um,
so
yeah,
yeah,
awesome. So, as Heidi mentioned, very white film. And as I
yes.
don't know if you ever been on when I've done this, but I like to do modern day recastings
Oh yeah, we got to get
of
the
The
things.
recast.
best
Yes.
part.
So,
Yeah.
and became being of Asian descent and a recovering actor myself, I usually casted all Asian or at least all ethnic here. So I'm gonna share screen. Remember how to do this. It's been so long since I've shared the screen. But yeah, so first I'm just going to show you.
So long as I
This is
shared.
Una Damon, the
Oh,
woman who was the lab
yes.
tour guide,
Yeah, Una Damon.
who was not
Yeah.
credited at all. But that's all right. So I feel like Peter Parker starts out at 17 years old. We got to go young. This actor I choose for him, I'm gonna go with here. You remember it's fresh off the boat. Hudson Yang is 17 going in 18.
Oh
He
my
has lost his baby fat.
Mm.
He's gotten in shape. That's his little brother with him, but looking good. I think he'd be a great Peter Parker. It also has a great comic book tie to his father, Jeff Yang, of course, and like it'd be awesome. Uh,
Mm.
and as
He's
his
got great comedic timing too.
Yeah, he really does. Yeah, he's great, and he has all these videos on Instagram of him working out because he's really gotten in shape. Like that's like he's already got the Spider-Man physique going on. So there you go. Next at 4 I have to, of course, I can't neglect my K-pop. For MJ, she's one of the she's one of the members of Oh My Girl, one of my favorite groups, but she's also an actress. Che Yuan, also known as Aren. And here she is currently with her red hair, so looks amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Che Yuan, she's Aren, little Aren. She's so cute. I love her. She's great. She'd be a great little MJ. And for since we want to go, I know with Marissa Tomei they went sort of a sexy Aunt May sort of thing. So I think we could sort of go in between there where she's still beautiful but also has her age and wisdom to her. Joan Chen,
Oh,
Aunt May.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Sexy Aunt May.
yep, yeah, she's almost, I think Joan Chen's 60 and she looks like this. She's amazing. And it has Uncle Ben, somebody wizened looking. He's an actor you've seen in everything. James Saito.
Oh.
Oh, he just said that wizened, like you want to get advice from him. You know that for
With
sure.
great power.
Yeah. And I also want to do a little gender swap too, because there is also very male heavy. So instead of Norman Osborn, maybe it could be Norma Osborn. And who better? Maggie Q. Come on now.
Oh
Yes.
my
Maggie Q.
god.
As the Green
Amazing.
Goblinette.
Hell
Yes.
yes.
That'd
Yeah.
be so
Yeah.
good.
That great? Yeah, she'd be awesome. And as her son, now we know the movie will be big, but if you want everyone in the world to see it, to be the biggest film in the world, we got to go back to K-pop and with the biggest band in the entire world right now, BTS, Jungkook.
Oh my
Jungkook could be a
god.
good looking. He's charismatic. Be a great Harry Osborn for sure.
Yeah.
And then I want to do John Cho as J. Jonah Jameson.
Yes.
There he's with his
Yes.
mustache. I was trying to find a mustache picture. I'm like, here's the mustache of John Cho.
With the
I think he's
cigar?
I know exactly what cigar. Awesome. Great with that thing.
Jimmy, I will say I like John Cho as J.
Mhm.
Jonah Jameson, but I just think that in all versions, even the Asian version, it should be J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons. We could maybe have a token.
Yeah. Okay.
Whitey.
He
Why
could be the
not?
token white person
Token
because
Whitey.
he's
For sure. And then as the jerky friend, Flash Tops, Eddie Lou, who's in everything lately, does well, doing really good. And why not? She's we need to get her back after Birds of Prey. Kathy Yan can direct it all.
Yes, nice.
Ooh,
All right.
that'd be
Although
so
I am
good.
torn, if Joan Chen doesn't do it, let's say she's unavailable. Let's get Una Damon out of retirement and give her due to play Aunt May. So we'll see.
Yes.
That'd be so good.
It's a great, you know what? That's really because I noticed how cool she was and how smart she was getting all the spider facts, and the fact that she wasn't credited is interesting.
Real annoying.
Is a shame, and it's annoying. And I'm glad you called that out, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I will say, all right, and this is me. I'm kind of speaking from a place of privilege, and I will say that obviously the movie's too white, too male. But in this one case, they stayed true to the comics material in a way. I will forgive it this one time that they did it right. So, and sticking with the comics. So,
yeah, sure. But then you go that argument of like where I get so annoyed where I always bring an example up where they announce like it's gonna be. I saw somebody post this where years ago there's gonna be a new whatever movie, Spider-Man movie, and they better look like this person, and they post a picture of the comic book version. I'm like, why? Why do they need to look like a person? They don't need to look like that person. But but if you mean the moments, which I know you do, yes, the moments absolutely work, and they kept the moments absolutely for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. No, I so this movie kicked off. I mean, like I said, Blade and X-Men paved the way, but this was the fastest grossing film to ever get to $100 million. It had the biggest opening day of all times. I mean, it was huge. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable. It was a sensation in the day when,
Really
we didn't
was.
have as many sensations back then.
Yep.
It was absolutely enormous. Huge success for everyone involved. And it really did kick off. It was the first film that in the beginning has that Marvel comic book.
Yeah, just so awesome.
First
The
time.
Marvel flip,
So,
Marvel flip,
right.
yeah.
So obviously Spider-Man in the MCU as it exists today has gone through a couple of changes. So, which we'll get to in the 4th episode of our Spider-Man month. But yeah, you know what? This kicked it all off, and it's a great movie. It's a great
It
movie.
really
I loved
is.
it. I'm gonna watch it as many times as I can this month. I'm gonna watch the whole trilogy for sure, over and
Yeah,
over.
I might at the end go watch them all in a row or
Yeah,
something
but
like
do
that.
the month of stars. It's only $9. You get to, so if you're gonna
Not a
rent a
bad
movie
idea.
for $3, you
Not a
save
bad idea.
it's the same amount of money and you get to watch it all month. So yeah.
True.
And also they have Far From Home on there, which I'm going to rewatch Far From Home. So, with Jake Gyllenhaal as Mr.
Yeah.
That's got all that cool meta stuff since Jake was almost Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2.
Right, exactly. So there's there's a lot more to come here on Spider-Man month. So, all right. Well, listen, Avery, Jimmy, thanks for helping kick things off. I'm Heidi McDonald, at The Beat, the editor-in-chief there, and I'm on all social media as Comixace, COMIXACE. Thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah, I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host producer of the weekly comic book, TV, film, pop culture podcast, Comic News Insider. Every week, you can find us at comicnewsinsider.com. You can find me online on all the socials at Jimmy Aquino. That's at JIMMYAQUINO.
And I'm Avery Kaplan. I'm the features editor at The Beat, and you can find me on Twitter at Avery Kaplan6.
All right. Again, thank you so much. And until next time, thwip.
Finish it.